No matter how much the Yuji tried to cleanse himself, his hands remained stained with blood. After the horrific Shibuya incident, Itadori had spent most of his time hunting down curses. Day after day, he simply ate and ate, then continued his relentless pursuit. During one particular fight, a curse battered him mercilessly, only for Itadori to suddenly realize the monster had dropped dead. It just collapsed right onto him. That's right, the one who took it down was none other than Yuta. Let's rewind a few days. Naoya, a grade 1 sorcerer, found himself on the receiving end of a massive scolding. His father was on his deathbed, yet Naoya couldn't have cared less, even showing up late. The next Zenin clan head is going to be me anyway, he thought. In Naoya's eyes, his older brothers were utterly useless, and he showed no respect, only disgust, even for the two uncles in the room with him. However, when those two threatened him, he quickly used his dying father as an excuse, saying, "My dad's on his deathbed, so maybe be a little patient." Just then, a lawyer entered, announcing, "The clan head passed away mere minutes ago. Since all three of you are present, I will now read his last will and testament." As expected, Naoya was named the 27th head of the Zenin clan. He was set to inherit all assets, including the cursed tools from the Jujutsu school's forbidden vault. But there was a catch. He could only use them with the approval of those two uncles. Hearing this, Naoya visibly seethed with anger. What could he do? He had to accept it. The final clause stated that if, for any reason, Gojo died or lost his faculties, the family was bound by a vow to Toji. Megumi was to be welcomed into the home as the clan head. All assets would then transfer to him, overriding the father's current will. Naoya stormed out of the room, determined to find out where Megumi was. He heard from Lady that Megumi was currently on a mission in Tokyo, searching for Yuji, who was also Sukuna's vessel. Upon hearing this, Naoya immediately concocted a plan to eliminate both of them simultaneously. Tokyo was a living hell anyway, so who died wouldn't matter much. Once they were dealt with, everything would fall into place, he believed. "I absolutely must become the next clan head," he declared, after the numerous tragic deaths following the Shibuya incident, which had left Yuji steeped in despair. When Choso asked how he was, Yuji replied that, aside from the spots hit by Black Flash, he was mostly okay. "The important thing is, I can feel Sukuna's power growing inside me," he added. Choso reassured him, urging his younger brother to return to Jujutsu High, but Itadori flat out refused. He felt he had caused too many deaths and couldn't be near his friends. "Don't forget, I killed your brother," Yuji reminded him. Choso didn't hold a grudge at all, because he knew it was unintentional. With that, the two went out to hunt curses. On a bridge, Yuji made himself bait, luring them out. Two fierce monsters emerged, vying to attack, forcing him to flee for his life. Even with the bridge destroyed and standing upright, Itadori's speed didn't falter. He rocketed into the air, kicking a lurking curse to pieces, then plummeted back down, only to be snatched by another curse and dragged directly into the city. But before it could even get started, Yuji blew it to smithereens. After handling that, he slammed to a halt, then scaled a nearby apartment building to survey his surroundings. Suddenly, a curse lunged down for a sneak attack, but it had no effect. Yuji calmly sidestepped the blow and kept moving. He knew he was being chased by a horde of curses, so he sprinted into a tunnel. The monster saw this and immediately pursued, completely unaware they were running straight into a trap. The moment he heard his younger brother's call, Choso unleashed his attack, obliterating them with a single blood projectile. Seeing his older brother about to be ambushed by another curse, Yuji didn't hesitate, rushing in to defeat it with his fists, which thoroughly impressed Choso. "When we fought before, I knew you were strong," Choso thought, "but now you've also got this impressive agility and masterful control over your curse technique. You truly are my little brother." Choso vowed to keep calling Yuji his brother until he finally accepted it. More than anything, he wanted the young man to try and remember if their father also had a scar stitched across his forehead. Suddenly, Naoya appeared, looking for Megumi, but finding no trace of him, he turned his attention to Yuji, challenging him not to run. "You've been sentenced to death, you know," Naoya sneered, "since Professor Gojo isn't around to back you up anymore. It's thanks to his capricious nature that so many sorcerers have been saved." Naoya revealed that Megumi was the one they were truly after, so their fates didn't matter. "I need him to die," he declared, "and I hope he'll write a little something before he kicks the bucket." With that, Naoya suddenly teleported behind Yuji, delivering a diagonal blow to his jaw. Choso immediately rushed to help, but Naoya's speed was simply too immense. In no time, Choso became nothing more than a punching bag for the man to practice on, while Naoya was busy admiring himself and stroking his hair, Choso managed a desperate counterattack, but it was futile and only earned him a retaliatory strike. Yuji seized the moment, throwing a rock that grazed Naoya's head, forcing him to keep his distance. He must be using some kind of speed technique to move like that, Yuji thought. Naoya admitted the two were more capable than he'd given them credit for. It seems I've underestimated you both, he conceded. Suddenly, all three felt a presence, something akin to Gojo, but far more terrifying. When they looked up, they saw a young man standing atop a nearby building. Though they didn't know who he was, Choso was certain he was there to kill Yuji. Seeing Yuta leap down, a sharp katana in hand, Naoya immediately raised his own hand, declaring, "I'm an ally." Through their brief exchange, Yuji recognized the newcomer as the second-year senior Megumi had mentioned, a special-grade sorcerer, just like Professor Gojo. Sensing the situation was dire, Choso urged Yuji to run. "Don't worry about me," he insisted, "you're the one they're after." Focus on escaping Yuta. Fighting him means certain death. With that, Choso promised to meet his younger brother at yesterday's spot. In a flash, Naoya darted forward, deflecting an attack, while Yuji found himself relentlessly pursued. Even though he was already running as fast as he could, on the other side, Naoya quickly realized his opponent was using blood manipulation. To use piercing blood, you first need to use flowing red scale, which drains a massive amount of your blood, he deduced. In short, you're going to die a miserable death. Hearing this, Choso's eyes narrowed dangerously, and he snarled, "You think you can lay a hand on my brother and walk away unscathed?" After struggling for a while, Yuji decided to counterattack and confront him head-on. He had to be extremely careful, because even the slightest mistake would mean instant death. The only thing Yuji could do was focus on dodging to save his life. After blowing the young man away, Yuta suddenly confessed, "Actually, I'm quite weak. But on the upside, I have far more cursed energy than even Gojo-sensei. However, he possesses the Six Eyes, so when he activates his technique, his cursed energy consumption is almost zero. My cursed energy, on the other hand, can still run out." Having explained this, Yuta continued to charge forward, slashing to end his target's life. During the fight, Yuji suddenly recalled what Todo had told him. The better a sorcerer is, the harder it is to see the flow of their cursed energy. You can't read their movements until the very last moment before impact. But the problem was, Yuta's entire body and his sword were constantly overflowing with cursed energy. Every single one of his attacks felt like a sure kill move, and Yuji couldn't predict any of his movements. Even so, he had no intention of dying here. There were simply too many things left unresolved. Stubbornly, Yuji leapt through a car, taking the opportunity to snatch a knife from the seat. Gojo-sensei had never taught his students how to use weapons, believing that over-reliance on cursed tools could lead to neglecting cursed energy control. So, weapons were only for emergencies, he'd said. Just as Yuta thought, the kid was too focused on his sword and inadvertently exposed an opening. Yuta immediately kneed him directly in the stomach, then shattered the knife with his blade, injuring Yuji. Seizing the moment, the young man swiftly kicked and broke Yuta's sword, disarming him. Yuji then rushed forward, attempting to counterattack, but was suddenly restrained by the cursed spirit Rika. No matter how much Yuji struggled, it was useless. The creature was simply too strong. Yuta slowly approached, then thrust his sword straight through Yuji's heart. "I'm sorry I had to do this to you, Yuji." After Yuji was dispatched by his senior, Sukuna suddenly sensed something and chose not to intervene. Meanwhile, Choso was being utterly pummeled by his opponent, completely lost. Naoya's attack speed was so blisteringly fast that Choso couldn't even discern his technique. Naoya continued to deliver a barrage of bruising blows, inflicting countless wounds on Choso, who even struggled to control the blood flowing from his body. Yet, as the eldest brother among his siblings, Choso still struggled to his feet, activating flowing red scale to try and defeat his enemy. Naoya seemed unconcerned, only wanted to understand Choso's cursed technique and his stubborn resilience. When Choso stubbornly refused to answer, Naoya decided to attack as before. To his surprise, Choso managed to keep up with his movements, forcing Naoya to resort to the hidden weapon he carried. He stabbed Choso once in the stomach with a knife, and realized his opponent was using flowing red scale, concentrating his strength in his external eyes to enhance his movement observation abilities. Unfortunately, Naoya was always vigilant, making it incredibly difficult for Choso to counterattack. Naoya arrogantly acknowledged Choso's ability to stop bleeding, then taunted him. "In the sorcerer world, it's quite embarrassing to be caught carrying weapons. Yet my brothers parade around with their weapons looking pathetic. I don't understand what right they have to disrespect Toji." Naya didn't hesitate to openly declare his intense dislike for his siblings. What's the point of living as an older brother if you're weaker than your younger sibling? Choso retorted, whether skilled or not, an older brother is always a role model for his younger brother. I'm willing to stray from the path so my brothers can avoid my mistakes. Since he had no one to guide him, Choso had made countless errors. Even so, he accepted the role of paving the way for his younger siblings. After a brief exchange, Naya was horrified to discover a pool of blood on the ground. From that pool, Choso transformed it into a surging wave that pursued him. The Cursed Womb. Death paintings are hybrids of cursed spirits and humans, possessing a unique physique that allows them to convert cursed energy into blood. As long as their cursed energy doesn't run out, they can't die from blood loss. Naoya struggled immensely to escape the pursuit, his legs growing heavier with each step. Is he controlling the blood on my clothes? He wondered. Despite being targeted by Choso, Naoya remained unfazed, because his technique allowed him to simulate and copy 24 frames of movement in advance, so even if he was bound, moving wasn't an issue. Instead of rushing, Choso calmly unleashed a self-created technique he had honed over 150 years. The drops of blood falling through the air exploded, catching Naoya completely off guard. Wounded, he lay on the ground, unable to get up. Choso approached, intending to deliver the finishing blow when Yuta suddenly appeared. Choso, stunned, didn't even have time to turn his head before he was instantly knocked out. Naoya, looking at Yuta's contemptuous gaze, became bitter and resentful. When he learned the blood manipulation contained poison, he realized Choso wasn't human. If things continued, Naoya would surely die, as his body was rejecting the strange toxic blood. Seeing this, Yuta offered a condition. I'll use reverse curse technique to heal you. In return, please report to the higher-ups that Itadori is dead. As he drifted in and out of consciousness, the protagonist saw his grandfather urging his father to stay away from that woman. The person his grandfather was warning him about was none other than Itadori's mother, a woman with a stitched scar across her forehead. When he finally awoke, still disoriented, he found Yuta sitting opposite him. Itadori, still wary that Yuta might try to kill him, watched as his opponent suddenly sighed with relief, then offered a friendly smile. Yuta explained, "Back in September, Gojo-sensei came to me and asked me to look after you. That's why I staged that whole act, to deceive the higher-ups." Gojo-sensei had suddenly gotten a bad feeling, so he'd asked Yuta to keep an eye on the first and second-year students. He was especially worried about Itadori, which is why he'd specifically asked Yuta to watch over the boy. To fool the higher-ups, Yuta had to make a binding vow to attack the protagonist. The reason Itadori was still alive was thanks to Yuta's reverse curse technique. The instant Itadori's heart stopped, Yuta simultaneously used the technique to heal him. This marked the second time Itadori had died a fake death, but Yuta suspected the truth would likely come out soon. For now, his execution was temporarily considered complete. Yuta helped Itadori because he was important to people who were important to Yuta. Besides, the kid wasn't at fault for any of this. The power he carried wasn't truly his own. Seeing Itadori wallowing in self-pity and blaming himself, Megumi suddenly stepped forward, urging him to return to Jujutsu High. The school's barrier was currently weakened, making it possible for him to come back. Itadori stubbornly refused, feeling he had stained his hands. "Many people died because of my mistakes." Megumi simply sighed, reminding his friend, "We're not heroes, we're Jujutsu sorcerers. No one can truly punish us. We don't have time to think about ourselves anymore. All you can do now is try your best to save people. Please, Itadori, save me." Kenjaku had bestowed curse techniques upon a group of individuals and created a game for them to kill each other, called the Culling Game. Megumi's sister had been drawn into this game, so he needed Itadori's help. "I need your strength to save her," he pleaded. He explained that according to the rules, the Culling Game would last 19 days. If anyone violated the rules, their curse technique would be taken away. Anyone who stepped into a barrier would immediately be considered a player. Players earned points by ending the lives of other players. Taking a sorcerer's life would grant 5 points, while a non-sorcerer's life yielded 1 point. Additionally, players could use 100 points to negotiate with the Game Master and add a new rule to the Culling Game. The Game Master was compelled to accept any new rule, unless it severely impeded the game itself. If a player's points remained unchanged for 19 days, that person would still lose their cursed technique. Hearing all this, Itadori turned to Yuta and confided in him about losing control in Shibuya. "If Sukuna takes over my body again next time, please kill me," he begged. For now, Megumi wanted the group to return to Jujutsu High and contact Master Tengen. They needed to find a way to unseal the prison realm and discover Kenjaku's specific objectives. To meet Tengen, The group had to choose the correct door from thousands that constantly shifted positions. Only one led to his star corridor. Before setting off, Itadori wanted an update on Obara. From Megumi's saddened expression, Itadori painfully realized that their friend hadn't made it. Suddenly, Choso poked his head out, revealing, "We still have a way to find that hidden barrier. Don't forget, Mahito once stole Sukuna's fingers from us. We'll use a similar method to locate it." The next morning, Yuta rushed down anxiously, checking on Maki, who was covered in numerous burns. Yuki explained that if it weren't for her incredible heavenly restriction, the girl would surely have been dead. After everyone was present, Choso immediately got to the main topic. Beyond the door leading to the Star Corridor, there's a forbidden vault storing the school's cursed tools and objects. 6 of my brother's remains are there, so I can sense their presence through my technique. To everyone's confusion, Itadori then introduced, "This is my older brother." Hearing this, Choso was so moved he wanted to give him a hug, but the group quickly pulled him along to search for the door. Guided by Choso's senses, the group swiftly found the hidden door leading to the Star Corridor. While moving, Choso finally located the resting place of his 6 younger brothers' remains. "Just wait a little, I'll come back for you all later," he whispered. After descending in the elevator, Itadori witnessed echoes of events from 12 years prior. Yuki believed that perhaps everything began to twist and distort from that point. With that, the group continued straight to the main hall. Inside was a vast, white, expansive space that made everyone wonder. "Perhaps this place has rejected us," someone muttered. Just as the group was about to give up, Tengen suddenly appeared, greeting them. "It's a great pleasure to meet all of you, including Sukuna's vessel." Episode 3. Most everyone present was welcomed by Tengen, except for Yuki. Tengen was concerned that Yuki might be an accomplice of Kenjaku, emphasizing the need for extreme caution with someone capable of body swapping like him. Despite possessing immortality, Tengen still aged. Anyone living for 500 years would end up looking exactly like this. 12 years ago, after failing to merge with the Star Plasma vessel, Tengen had rapidly aged, and her sense of self had gradually faded. The group seemed rather uninterested, as they were there to inquire about Kenjaku's objective and how to unseal the prison realm. Tengen agreed, on the condition that 2 people remain there as her bodyguards. Facing a barrage of questions from the group, he closed her eyes and revealed Kenjaku's true goal: to force all of humanity across Japan to evolve. Megumi wondered why Kenjaku hadn't simply used Tengen's barriers and idle transfiguration to turn everyone into sorcerers back then. Tengen simply explained that he lacked the cursed energy to do so. Kenjaku's chosen method was to assimilate humanity with Tengen. However, the problem was that only Star Plasma vessels could assimilate with her. But since that incident, Tengen had evolved significantly compared to 12 years prior. Therefore, assimilation with others was no longer impossible. Even her soul had evolved and now existed everywhere. Heaven and earth had become my true self. Those who assimilated with him would transcend even sorcerers. Because he possessed barrier techniques, he could retain her form and sanity. If humanity were to evolve and even one person lost control, the world would be annihilated. This meant there would be no more distinction between individuals. The impurities of 100 million people would flood the world. However, Tengen only knew this much. The specific reasons remained unclear. After his evolution, he was closer to a cursed spirit than a human, meaning Kenjaku could potentially use cursed spirit manipulation to absorb her. And that was also the reason. Tengen's true self had rejected everything from entering the Star Corridor. Hearing this, Yuki couldn't help but wonder why Kenjaku was only acting now after all these years. Tengen explained that it was because Tengen, the Star Plasma vessels, and the Six Eyes were bound by a karmic relationship. Kenjaku had been defeated twice by users of the Six Eyes. Since then, he had acted with extreme caution, eliminating all Star Plasma vessels and Six Eyes users within a month of their birth. But on the day of assimilation, both had appeared simultaneously, forcing Kenjaku to shift from killing to sealing. At any given time, only one person with the Six Eyes existed. Toji's interference in the events 12 years ago had thrown everything into chaos. The death of the Star Plasma vessel had shattered their collective fate. Seizing this opportunity, Kenjaku swiftly took action. He established the culling game to prepare for the assimilation. This game utilized cursed energy domains in the player's boundaries to perform a ritual that would transport people from this nation to the other side. Afterward, he would begin to assimilate with Tengen. To maintain such a large-scale ritual, Kenjaku himself had to abide by certain restrictions. Ironically, he wasn't the game master of the culling game. This meant that even if Kenjaku were to die, the game would not end. Coupled with this was a rule ensuring the continuation of the culling game to prevent any interruption to the ritual. So, the group's plan was to accumulate 100 points to negotiate with the Game Master, Then they would add a rule allowing unwilling players to exit. Additionally, they needed to find a way to free Gojo-sensei and rely on him to carry the team. To finalize, Shoso and Yuki both volunteered to stay there as bodyguards. Shoso wanted to seize this chance to end Kenjaku's life and avenge his brothers. As for Yuki, she wished to remain and discuss further, allowing Yuta to depart. Once they agreed, Tengen handed the group the back of the prison realm, an item necessary to free Gojo-sensei. The unfortunate truth was that even with it, he would still be sealed within the back face. Typically, to break it open, one would need either the inverted spear of heaven or another special tool. Ironically, Gojo-sensei himself had destroyed both of those items. It turns out he literally sabotaged himself. Yuta and Miguel had flown to Africa searching, but none remained. Among the players in the culling game was a sorcerer from 1,000 years ago, who called herself the Angel. Her cursed technique could nullify any other technique. With the Angel's technique, they could break open the back of the prison realm. This person was currently located within the Eastern Tokyo barrier. In total, there were 10 barriers across the country, all connected to a boundary that would transport the people of Japan to the other side. Crossing the river, or more accurately, the boundary, to the other side held significant meaning in Jujutsu. Currently, all citizens in Japan were being cursed in preparation for the assimilation. Hokkaido would remain unaffected, as that land had been transformed into a gigantic sacred ground. Tanjin speculated that the ritual would be completed within 2 months. Right now, the awakened players, including Megumi's sister, only had 10 days left to play. Players who refused to participate in the culling game would have their curse technique stripped away. This was effectively a death sentence. According to Gojo-sensei's friends, this loss of technique wasn't caused by idle transfiguration. It was a stripping away, not a prohibition. So anyone who refused would simply vanish. On the bright side, Maki wouldn't face this risk since she had no curse technique. As for Panda, it was a toss-up. Who knew if he even had a brain? Regular people, once they reached 100 points, would be given at least one chance to escape. From the outset, players were fully aware of the goal to escape the barrier, so it was better to imprison them from the start than to let them voluntarily enter. The remaining rules were fundamentally not too difficult to understand. Regarding the Game Master, each player would receive a Shikigami attached to them. The Game Master should be understood as the culling game program itself. Since it couldn't erase pre-existing rules, it could only add new ones to indirectly negate them. However, to achieve 100 points, players were compelled to kill others. If they didn't kill anyone within 19 days, their cursed technique would be stripped. With the explanation complete, Maki would return to the Zenin clan to retrieve cursed tools. Shoso and Yuki would remain there as bodyguards. After Gojo was sealed in the prison realm, the cursed tools in the school's vault had been taken by 2 major clans. Luckily, Megumi had become clan head, so Maki could freely go and retrieve weapons. Once that was done, she would go find Panda. Yuta, meanwhile, would enter the culling game to gather as much information as possible before Megumi and his sister joined. He didn't want to fight his allies, so he could avoid nearby barrier domains. The barriers could block signals, meaning everyone would be unable to communicate for a while. Hearing this, Itadori got an uneasy feeling. Fearing Sukuna might switch places with him. What if something happens if I don't go with Yuta? He worried. Megumi, seeing his distress, patted his back reassuringly. Everything will be fine, now's not the time to worry about that. Since they were short on numbers, Yuta's group would go meet and recruit a suspended third-year senior. He's very unpredictable, but when he gets serious, he's incredibly strong, Megumi explained. Before leaving, Itadori didn't forget to thank Choso for his help. Choso, utterly content, told his younger brother not to die, then burst into tears. At the same time, a 35-year-old comedian was being relentlessly scolded by his manager for a poor performance. He simply vented his frustration to clear his head, then left as if nothing had happened. After he departed, a bearded man nearby told the comedian a harsh truth. There are 2 types of people who are famous forever. Those who are truly funny and those who can always believe they are funny. Which type are you? Hearing this, the comedian fell into a state of confusion, unsure what he should do to salvage his career. Episode 4. Upon returning to the clan, Maki was subjected to Naoya's terrible insults. He even considered whether he should torture her as he had before. Maki didn't care. She simply walked straight to the cursed tool vault, having been granted permission by the clan head. Megumi had initially refused the position, but was forced into it by the elders. If you become the clan head, we'll gain more information about the big 3 families, they told him. Megumi realized it would be pointless to hand the position over to Maki as no one would accept her. He had inherited the clan's technique and mastered a domain expansion. Not to mention he possessed many other qualities, while Maki still lacked the necessary capabilities. On her return to the clan, Maki ignored everyone, including her mother. Her sole objective was to retrieve the cursed tools and leave that place as quickly as possible. However, what Maki hadn't anticipated was that her father had been waiting for her. Upon learning that Megumi had become the clan head and sought to mend ties with other clans, the higher-ups had condemned those rebels who plotted to free Gojo. This, he figured, was the perfect time to strike at Megumi. Maki and Mai's father, knowing his daughters were headed for the cursed tool vault, had moved ahead, designating the place as their tomb. With that, he took a stance, using the secret technique Falling Blossom Emotion, then waited for Maki to enter his range before drawing his sword and attacking. In mere seconds, she effortlessly shattered his blade, but ultimately she was the one who took a fatal blow and collapsed. The reason he hadn't become clan head, he explained, was because he had 2 failed daughters. The father, coldly dragging their bodies, sneered at his 2 girls. "I'm a Jujutsu sorcerer, not a swordsman, so don't assume you've won just because my sword broke. It's only because his 2 daughters' abilities were so weak that he wasn't chosen as the prospective clan head. His actual strength was hardly inferior to his younger brothers. Children who stand in a parent's way are utterly unacceptable," he declared. The ruthless father threw the 2 sisters into a room where countless cursed spirits, grade 2 and below, were imprisoned as punishment. "They'll swarm out and devour you both soon enough." After the father left, Mei crawled over to check her sister's wounds. Despite her severe injuries, Maki was incredibly resilient. After examining her, Mai proceeded to do what she believed was a terrible thing. A short while later, Maki woke up to find herself lying on a beach created by her sister's technique. Mei knew she would die sooner or later, so she walked straight into the sea. At that moment, Maki finally understood why twins were considered an ill omen for sorcerers. The idea that to gain one thing you had to lose another didn't apply to twins. That's because, in Jujutsu, twins were considered a single entity. This meant no matter how much Maki struggled or craved power, it was meaningless. As long as Mei existed, Maki would always be incomplete. Therefore, Mai would leave one thing for her sister and discard everything else. All of Mai's cursed energy would be taken by her sister, in exchange for Mai's promise to destroy everything. With her dying breath, Mai offered a contented smile, then passed away, leaving her sister with deep regret. No matter how much Maki called out, her sister didn't respond. Suddenly, the old man sensed that all the curses had vanished. The murderous aura emanating from the warehouse sent shivers down his spine, reminding him of a feeling from years past. But instead of giving up, he unleashed his technique, Tozen's bone-burning grudge, determined to incinerate Maki's very bones. The old man launched a provocative attack, only to find himself in the next world before he even realized it. Maki, with chilling resolve, struck without hesitation, beginning her massacre of the clan alongside her sister's memory. When the alarm bells rang, the entire Zenin clan was thrown into chaos. Naoya and the others wouldn't have believed even in their wildest dreams that Maki had personally dispatched the old man. By order of the head of the Cursed Tools Storage Unit, the subordinates were to split up and try to capture her alive for him to deal with. The men of the Zenin clan, who lacked cursed techniques, were compelled to join this unit. Maki herself had once belonged to the Cursed Tool Storage Unit before entering Jujutsu High. Despite being surrounded by her family, Maki dedicated her entire mind to recalling the moment she'd spent with Mei. Ultimately, she wanted to apologize to her sister and would destroy everything, just as she had promised the girl. Seeing them all charge in simultaneously, Maki didn't hesitate, ending them with a single blow. For these small fry, she only needed a few swift movements to take them all down. Each sharp sword stroke was unleashed with no other goal than to claim lives. The enemies rushed forward like moths to a flame, meeting a bitter end. A truly gruesome fate awaited them. Before long, Maki had painted the room red with fresh blood. The Cursed Tool Storage Unit, though numerous, couldn't land a single blow on Maki. They were a pathetic bunch, only able to helplessly receive blows and pass into the next world. It was a horrific end, one they could never have imagined. Maki was like a machine of destruction. Wherever she went, enemies fell. After all the cannon fodder had disconnected from the server, the squad leader finally entered, utterly shocked by the bloody scene. While Maki wasn't looking, an old man unleashed his cursed technique. The ground where Maki stood suddenly transformed into 2 gigantic hands. They carried the blood of those who had fallen and began to close, intending to crush her from within. The squad leader felt relieved seeing the Hei unit appear, meaning he wouldn't have to face that woman. The Hei unit consisted of members recognized as semi-grade 1 or higher by Jujutsu High standards, meaning they were arguably the strongest sorcerers in the Zenin clan. Seeing Maki suddenly charge down to attack, the squad leader broke into a cold sweat. He cautiously maintained his distance, retaliated, and felt bewildered. Why is she still moving after taking that old man's attack? Maki lunged forward like a wild beast, delivering a fierce attack, then used her bare hands to rip open an artery, finishing him off instantly. Seeing this, the old man immediately rushed to assist, but Maki was too fast. She cruelly did the same to him, completely unaware she had fallen into a trap. Even with the entire squad combining their efforts to restrain her, they couldn't stop Maki. To keep her still, the young man was forced to exert all his strength. Yet he still couldn't halt the monstrous woman. Maki calmly tore out the eyes that were restraining her, but it was useless. The young man had decided to use his very life to hold her back. The Zaiming clan continued to exist because of Toji's capricious nature. Maki had become just like him. For the safety of the clan, the uncle put all his power into unleashing countless punches to eliminate the threat. From the sky, a merciless barrage of fists rained down on Maki. It was an incredibly destructive attack, designed to ensure she was utterly obliterated. After the shockwave subsided, the young man confidently departed this mortal coil, completely unaware that the one who delivered the blow had been reduced to a mere skull. Watching Maki expressionlessly toss the uncle's head into the pond, Naoya still didn't change his arrogant demeanor. Her current appearance reminded him of Toji. He recalled how, when people said the Zenin clan head was a loser with no cursed energy, Naoya eagerly rushed to see his pathetic face, only to be profoundly impressed by the killing intent radiating from the man. Back in the battle, Naoya relentlessly unleashed countless attacks, aiming straight for Maki. In his eyes, she was nothing more than a common brat, not Toji. The sin of the weak is not realizing the strength of their opponent, he thought. You are definitely not him, because the one who stands there can only be me. Naoya's projection sorcery technique didn't allow movements that ignored trajectory and physical laws. At the moment of technique activation, there was a maximum limit to increasing the body's speed. However, maintaining the technique would allow speed to continue to increase. After that humiliating defeat, Naoya had learned his lesson and was no longer careless. Ironically, Maki had seen through his strategy and found a way to defeat him. When she extended her hand, ready for a direct confrontation, Naoya remained completely unfazed as his projection sorcery was still active. Anything he touched would move at 24 frames per second, and if he failed, it would result in a 1-second immobilization. He subtly touched Maki's shoulder, then carefully maneuvered behind her to strike, knowing that a direct confrontation would surely lead him into her trap. Ironically, it was Maki herself who anticipated Naoya's intention and suddenly spun around to deliver a blow. "Thanks to this body," she declared, "I can finally clearly see that you perform 24 movements every second." With that, Maki punched Naoya squarely in the face, instantly shattering his bones. Having defeated him, she calmly walked through the house searching for her mother. When she found her, Maki asked why her mother had told her to turn back earlier. But her mother was consumed by fear, so Maki unhesitatingly finished her off. While Maki was distracted, Naoya, with his ruined body, was desperately trying to escape. Ironically, Maki's mother found him and stabbed him. To his very last breath, Naoya couldn't believe he had died such a miserable death. Deep down, the mother felt joy at having given birth to her 2 daughters. Upon receiving the news, Maki's friend immediately arrived at the scene and burst into tears, realizing Mei was no longer alive. Maki then asked her seniors to handle the rest, and continued on her way to deal with the remaining Zenin bloodline members outside, personally putting an end to this wretched clan. Maki eventually departs from the compound, carrying the lifeless body of her sister Mai, draped over her shoulder in a heartbreaking scene. During her exit, she crosses paths with Momo, who immediately breaks down into tears upon seeing her fallen friend, filled with regret for not being able to prevent this tragedy. Maki coldly but solemnly entrusts Mai's remains to Momo's care, after which she walks away. This brutal purge led to the near-total annihilation of the Zenin clan's core members. When the forensic investigators arrived, they didn't even need to look for clues to identify the perpetrator, as every single corpse bore the mark of a specific type of execution by an incredibly lethal and mysterious curse tool that left no room for doubt. Fast forward a few days, and the Gojo and Kamo clans have officially lobbied the Jujutsu headquarters to have the Zenin clan stripped of its status and expelled from the Big Three families, a verdict that currently remains, officially pending a final decision. Officially designated Principal Masamichi Yaga as the scapegoat for the entire Shibuya incident, placing every ounce of blame on his shoulders. However, the true motivation behind this harsh sentence likely stems from a much darker agenda. The stubborn old man Gakuganji arrived to interrogate Yaga about the secret behind cursed corpses that possess self-awareness and can regenerate their own cursed energy, just like Panda does. With that specific knowledge, the authorities could potentially manufacture an entire army of artificial soldiers, a prospect that deeply unnerves the higher-ups. Thinking back on his beloved creations, Yaga shares a final, tender moment with young Takeru, explaining that he'll be away on a very long business trip soon. He tells the boy that it's going to be a while before he returns. He reassures the boy that the forest is safely under Master Tenjin's protection and that Takeru's mother will be visiting frequently, so everything will be alright. The children watch Yaga depart with heavy hearts, their eyes filled with sadness as they confess how lonely they'll feel without his presence. Meanwhile, the higher-ups have already set a trap. Panda has been taken into custody as bait to force Yaga into the open. However, help was already on the way. Kusakabe steps in to rescue Panda, motivated by a profound debt of gratitude he owes to Principal Yaga. We look back at a time when Kusakabe brought his grieving sister to visit Yaga and Takaguru. In that moment, Takeru realized that the woman standing before him was actually his mother. The two shared an overwhelming, tearful reunion as their emotions finally overflowed. Yaga felt the need to apologize to Kusakabe for the complicated circumstances surrounding their secret meeting. He explained that the existence of cursed corpses with independent consciousness must remain a strict secret from the world. Because of this, Takeru could never truly live a normal life with Kusakabe's sister. Despite the tragedy, Kusakabe was deeply moved by Yaga's kindness. He expressed his sincere thanks, believing that Takeru's existence was the only thing that allowed his sister to keep going until now. Refusing to hide or flee from his fate, Yaga proceeds to meet with Panda and faces destiny. When confronted by the executioners, Yaga shows no sign of yielding. He has absolutely no intention of handing over the secrets of his cursed corpses to the corrupt higher-ups just to save his own skin. He stands his ground, ready for a fight, noting that the people standing before him have certainly grown bold now that Satoru Gojo is safely sealed away. Suddenly, their tense confrontation is cut short by the haunting sound of stringed music echoing through the air. Principal Gakuganji of the Kyoto School makes his entrance as the designated executioner tasked with ending Yaga's life. It was a brutal struggle, and Gakuganji even had to break his own guitar in half just to finally bring the principal down. As the light fades from his eyes and his life begins to slip away, Yaga finally decides to disclose the ultimate secret behind the creation of Panda and the true nature of his sentient cursed corpses. He whispered the forbidden truth of the cursed corpses to Gakuganji. To successfully manufacture a cursed doll that possesses a free will of its own, one that doesn't require any external input of cursed energy, the creator must carefully infuse the core with 3 souls that are perfectly compatible with one another. Inside the core, these 3 souls must constantly observe, interact, and essentially clash with each other until a perfect state of equilibrium is achieved and a true self emerges. Gakuganji is absolutely stunned by this revelation. He asks why Yaga would wait until his final breath to share this information. If he had spoken sooner, he could have easily avoided his death sentence. But Yaga simply replies that this revelation is his final act. He tells him that this knowledge is a curse being passed from him to Gakuganji to carry forever. After breaking free from his confinement, Panda races to the scene, but he's already too late. He finds his father lying motionless on the ground, surrounded by a pool of blood. Despite the immense grief and the sight of his creator's killer standing right there, Panda makes the shocking choice not to attack the man who took his father's life. Gakuganji asks the question we're all thinking. Does Panda harbor hatred for him? Panda's response is enough to break anyone's heart. He explains that he doesn't hate the old man, viewing him as nothing more than a blade being wielded by the higher-ups. He recognizes that Gakuganji was just following orders from above. However, he leaves him with a chilling warning to keep in mind for the future. Even a panda knows how to shed tears after losing a father figure. Following the cryptic instructions left by Master Tengen, Yuji and Megumi track down an abandoned parking garage that serves as the base of operations for Kinji Hakari. This guy is a third-year student at Jujutsu High, but he's currently suspended because of his constant clashes with the conservative higher-ups. Right now, he's busy running a secret underground fight club. What's wild is that the fighters stepping into the ring are all Jujutsu sorcerers. Megumi quickly realizes that Hakari is flagrantly violating Article 8 of the Jujutsu regulations regarding the confidentiality of their world. Knowing that Hakari is a complete rebel operating deep in the criminal underworld, Yuji and Megumi decide the best move is to ditch their school uniforms to avoid making a bad first impression. They remove their recognizable gear to fly under the radar. While many people dismiss Hakari as a lazy delinquent, as they try to enter Hakari's territory, they are immediately stopped by a bouncer who talks down to them, telling these little kids to go home and stop wetting their beds. Megumi thinks fast and fabricates a cover story to deceive the guard, pretending they are just desperate guys looking to earn some quick cash in the ring. The doorman tries to intimidate Megumi with some tough talk, but it backfires completely. Megumi doesn't blink. Instead, he turns the tables and threatens the guy right back with a cold stare, while the guard realizes things are getting way more intense than he expected. Hakari is actually watching the whole confrontation through security cameras from his control room. He decides to let them in, and chooses Yuji to be the one to step into the ring today, bypassing Megumi entirely. This actually works out perfectly for their plan. Megumi realizes that a physical brawl is exactly where Yuji's natural talents shine the brightest. However, they still need to play their parts convincingly. To keep Hikari from getting suspicious, Megumi puts on a convincing act, acting like he's annoyed and really wants a turn in the spotlight too. After a bit of back and forth arguing, Megumi finally relents and agrees to follow Hikari's terms. With that bit of theater out of the way, they successfully make it past the entrance and deeper into the facility. Yuji is feeling a bit on edge about the whole situation. Megumi tells him not to sweat it, pointing out that if Hikari is monitoring the cameras, he must be close by. They split their roles. Yuji will take to the stage to draw everyone's eyes, while Megumi slips into the restricted areas to find a way to confront Hikari directly. Their main goal is to talk things out peacefully first. Megumi is fully aware that if Hikari refuses to cooperate, or if he gets caught sneaking around, Yuji's cover will be blown instantly. Force will have to be their final option because Sumiki's time is running out fast. Yuji is led to the waiting room where one of Hikari's goons explains the ground rules. There's no running away from a fight and absolutely no usage of curse techniques is allowed. Yuji boldly tells the guy that he doesn't mind if his opponents use their powers, since he's not afraid of anyone. But the henchman explains that since the audience consists of non-sorcerers, they can't actually see cursed techniques, making a hidden battle boring to watch. At the end of the day, this is a business, and in the world of entertainment, the spectators are treated like royalty. The subordinate also informs Yuji that there are two categories of matches: raw, unscripted brawls, and matches with a script written by the boss himself. He hints that if Yuji puts on a good enough show, the boss might actually be interested in having a chat with him. When he reaches the arena, Yuji is shocked to see they've literally gutted the upper floors so the crowd can look down and watch the carnage below. The announcer Joe Bobby wastes no time introducing the rising young talent Yuji to the roaring crowd. Though when Bobby announces Yuji's opponent, the entire stadium erupts in noise while Yuji's jaw hits the floor in pure shock. His opponent is none other than Panda himself. Meanwhile, back in the control room, the man of the hour, Kinji Hikari, finally makes his full appearance. Contrary to what you might expect, Hikari has a very rugged, street-smart vibe, carrying himself with the unmistakable aura of a true underworld kingpin. Standing right beside him is a flashy individual with two-toned hair. However, let me give you a heads up before you get any ideas. This person's name is Kirara Hoshi, and he is definitely a guy. Don't let the looks fool you. It's pretty hilarious that a guy as tough-looking as Hikari has such specific tastes in companions. Right now, though, he's looking bored out of his mind because he thinks today's main event is a total dud. In his eyes, watching some random newcomer go up against a giant panda just doesn't have that spark of excitement he's looking for. Hikari is convinced that Panda is going to absolutely demolish the kid in seconds, which means there's no real gambling thrill to be had. Meanwhile, the match between Yuji and Panda kicks off, and it's honestly a bit of a comedy behind the scenes. To the cheering crowd, it looks like a high-stakes, intense battle between a martial arts panda and a promising rookie fighter. Even the commentator, who's only been on the job for 2 weeks, is getting hyped up by the action. But in reality, the two are just whispering to each other about Hikari while putting on a show. They are trading dozens of punches that look powerful, but the actual damage is zero. Panda quietly informs Yuji that he and Hikari are old acquaintances, which is why Hikari hasn't been suspicious of him yet. Hikari has been avoiding Panda lately, but since Yuji is hiding the fact that he's a student from Jujutsu High, they have a plan. Yuji throws a hilariously weak punch, and Panda intentionally takes the hit, rolling around on the ground and jokingly calling for the United Nations to step in. The audience absolutely loses it, shocked that an unknown rookie could actually take down the legendary fighting panda. That upset victory is exactly what it took to get Hikari's attention. He immediately calls for Yuji to meet him and starts writing a script for Yuji's final match. However, they aren't letting their guard down regarding Megumi. Hikari tells Kirara that he'll need to help with security. Hikari admits he hasn't felt this kind of rush since the time his ex-girlfriend maxed out every single one of his credit cards. Once the match is over, Panda finds Megumi in a secluded corner to talk. Panda is actually pretty impressed that Yuji managed to get an invite from Hikari so quickly, considering Panda has tried and failed multiple times. Panda explains that even though he knows Hikari is always in the rooftop monitoring room, he's never been able to get close to the entrance himself. Every time Panda tries to walk toward the door, the distance between him and the entrance never seems to shrink. It gave him a sensation very similar to Gojo-sensei's limitless technique. Panda suspects this is actually the work of Kirara's curse technique, as Kirara is a third year just like Hikari. To avoid making Hakari run away, Panda decided not to force his way in and instead stayed active in the fighting arena. Luckily, Megumi's team arrived just in time to help. However, Megumi is still a bit skeptical about whether Yuji can actually convince Hakari to help them once they meet face to face. While Yuji is incredibly sincere and likable, he is also notoriously terrible when it comes to telling even a simple lie, which makes him a bit of a wild card in a high-stakes negotiation. If Yuji goes in there and Hakari starts grilling him with questions, there's a high chance he'll accidentally reveal their true identities, causing the whole negotiation to crumble. Hakari would likely just flee or call for reinforcements. Because of this risk, Panda suggests a daring strategy. Have Yuji play the role of the arena champion so he gets a formal invitation to Hakari's private office. While Yuji is inside, the rest of them will quietly neutralize the guards and take control of the area surrounding the monitoring room. Megumi expresses some doubt, asking how they'll pull that off if Hakari is literally watching the security feed. It turns out that Panda has already memorized the locations of every single camera and figured out all their blind spots. With that information, Megumi finally sees a path to success. Their main objective is to completely isolate Hakari and Kurara from the rest of their crew. Once Yuji is inside the room and there's no one left outside for Hakari to call for backup, they'll have him cornered. They want to force Hakari into a position where he has no choice but to sit down and listen to their proposal. The goal is to get him to cooperate rather than just bolting for the exit. Panda points out that the biggest hurdle will be Kurara's curse technique. If his power allows him to teleport Yuji out of the room or bring allies in, then Megumi's group might as well give up on negotiating entirely. With the time and place set, Yuji arrives at the designated spot and is met by Kurara, who prepares to lead him to the boss. Kurara acts quite friendly, though he's clearly sizing Yuji up, expressing surprise that a mere high school freshman could be this skilled. Yuji notices Kurara's demeanor and asks if he's always this happy. Kurara explains that since Hakari is currently in a great mood, he's happy too, confessing that he truly loves being by Hakari's side. Their conversation serves as a prelude to the main meeting. The meeting between Hakari and Yuji is far from a simple greeting. It feels more like Hakari is trying to weave a spell over him. He makes it clear that he couldn't care less about justice or saving the world. For him, the only thing that matters is the rush of excitement. According to Hakari, gambling isn't just about the money. It's the very essence of living. He believes society just steps on anyone who isn't brave enough to place a massive bet on their own life. He views love as a form of total control, and his dream is to control the collective excitement of the entire nation through his underground arena. In the wake of the Shibuya incident, the existence of cursed spirits has been exposed to the general public, and the old laws of the Jujutsu world are crumbling. Hakari sees this chaos as the perfect opportunity to make his move. He wants to take advantage of this turning point to bring his fighting arena into the light, transforming it into a fully legal and public competition. Hakari believes he's already holding a winning hand, especially with powerful assets like Yuji now in the mix. Suddenly, a phone call interrupts their talk. Hakari offers Yuji a drink to celebrate, but Yuji politely declines, mentioning that he's not old enough to drink yet. Yuji sticks to his guns about being underage, and Hakari casually mentions that even a legend like Satoru Gojo can handle his liquor. Yuji tries to play it cool, pretending he has no clue who this Gojo guy is, but he inadvertently walks straight into Hakari's trap. Hakari knows the Jujutsu world better than that and isn't so easily fooled. Hakari looks him dead in the eye and tells him that there isn't a single Jujutsu sorcerer on the planet who doesn't know exactly who Gojo is. He catches him in the lie instantly, realizing that Yuji has been playing him from the start. What a wild ride it's been seeing, Maki's evolution and the tragic fate of Director Yaga. This massive cliffhanger with Hakari and Itadori has everyone on the edge of their seats, wondering what happens next, my friend. Things are really heating up as the countdown to the culling game continues, and we're definitely moving into some of the most intense territory of the series yet. At the very start of the episode, we see a guard who's just hoping to finish his shift quickly and head back home. Unfortunately for him, Megumi shows up and instantly knocks him unconscious before he even knows what hit him. The team looks around trying to figure out why the atmosphere feels so weird, and then they spot Panda sitting there in his usual imposing way. Seeing him actually brings a wave of relief to everyone involved. It turns out Panda had already been involved in a skirmish at that location earlier. While everyone was distracted by the fallout of that fight, the guards were dealt with, and now Panda and Megumi are beginning to make their way further up into the building to find their target. Megumi wonders if they're finally done with the trouble, suggesting they should probably lock the doors to keep things secure. But as they move forward, they suddenly come face to face with Kurara. The moment they lock eyes, Kira realizes that these intruders aren't just random people. Kurara recognizes Panda and the spiky-haired boy standing next to him, which immediately confirms all her suspicions. She remembers seeing this boy with Yuji at Sidori in the past. Realizing that Panda is helping Fushiguro, she concludes that Yuji and the rest of them must definitely be agents sent from Jujutsu High. Just as a phone call comes through, Kurara tries to make a run for it. Megumi reacts instantly by summoning his divine dog to block her path, but in a strange twist, the attack is reflected away. Panda points out that he's experienced this before every single time he tries to get close. A weird force pushes him back. Kurara starts sprinting away the moment she sees Panda approaching. Panda is desperately trying to explain that they aren't enemies and that they only came there to talk. But Kurara feels betrayed, shouting that she placed her trust in Panda and can't believe he would turn around and deceive her like this. Kurara notes that because Panda is already marked by her technique, he isn't a threat to her movement. She heads straight for Hikari's room, but Megumi's divine dog cuts her off. Now she's trapped, she can't move forward or backward because both the dog and Panda have these mysterious markings on them. The marking is also on the divine dog, and Megumi is completely stumped by how this weird technique actually functions. He tries to reason with Kurara, asking her to listen because she must know the terrible state Tokyo is in right now. He emphasizes that something horrific has happened to the city and they need help. He explains that in these dire times they absolutely need Hikari's assistance. He swears they aren't representing the interests of Jujutsu High, but Kurara scoffs at the idea. She reminds him that it was the school and its people who were the ones to first cut ties and abandon their connection to her and Hikari. Megumi is still a bit lost regarding the specific beef between Kurara, Hikari, and the school system. Panda takes a moment to explain that the whole conflict started because of a massive clash with the conservative faction. They had a huge disagreement in the past that led to this long-standing and bitter rivalry. The primary cause of the clash was their specific style of jujutsu. For instance, someone like Nobara has a very traditional and proper technique that the elders accept. However, Hikari's technique is entirely different and modern, incorporating things that look like old cursed video trends and digital concepts. Hikari's curse technique is a mix of high-tech modern themes, which the higher-ups in the conservative faction simply refuse to acknowledge as legitimate. Those old-fashioned leaders acted quite irrationally regarding his power, and that fundamental disagreement is exactly why the two sides ended up clashing so violently. Kurara questions their presence, pointing out that if they have someone as powerful as Satoru Gojo around to handle things, they shouldn't even need Hikari's help. She suspects that there's a hidden motive for them being there, as it makes no sense for them to come seeking reinforcements if everything was going fine. Megumi finally drops the truth. Satoru Gojo has already been sealed away. Kurara is visibly shocked by this revelation, but still seems hesitant to believe it. Megumi realizes that just talking won't be enough to convince her or get them through, so he decides it's time to take more direct action to change the situation. Megumi activates his rabbit escape technique, summoning a swarm of Shikigami. As the rabbits fill the space, he notices something very interesting. Every single rabbit now carries a specific marking or symbol. He even spots the same symbols appearing on the walls and objects around the room. As more rabbits swarm out, Kurara wonders what Megumi is up to. She thinks to herself that since these are all Shikigami made of energy, and her technique marks a person's energy, these rabbits are essentially being treated by her technique as if they were individual cursed energy users themselves. She believes Megumi will be crushed by the sheer volume of his own energy being marked, but as the rabbits multiply, they suddenly start to vanish and dissipate into thin air. It's because of the specific way Kurara's technique works. Megumi finally starts to understand the logic, realizing he also carries a mark just like the rabbits. When he checks with Panda, he finds that Panda is marked too, though the symbols are different. Megumi realizes the symbols aren't random at all. They represent a constellation. This celestial map is the key trick to the entire technique, and Kurara begins to worry that her secret is being unraveled. Kurara is stunned that Megumi might have figured it out so soon. When Megumi confidently states that the pattern is the Southern Cross constellation, Kurara is visibly shaken. She gets angry with herself for having a reaction that basically confirmed Megumi was correct, even though he didn't have absolute proof yet. Megumi didn't have 100% proof until Kurara showed her surprise, but now it's confirmed. Megumi actually knows about the Southern Cross constellation because of his sister. He explains that the constellation is made of 4 main stars, and the technique is clearly governed by the positioning of those specific celestial bodies. Based on the constellation's rules, certain people can get close, while others are forced away. Currently, Panda and Megumi are being blocked from approaching specific points because those stars are programmed to repel each other. Kurara and the door are linked, while Megumi and Panda are stuck in a different part of the sequence. It's a situation where A can get close to B, but B is physically pushed away from A. They are desperately looking for a workaround, knowing that if Kurara makes it to the door, it'll be impossible to get inside. They keep brainstorming a way to bypass this invisible barrier while there's still time. Megumi starts to suspect there might even be a 5th star hidden in this sequence. Panda is worried that if there are 6 or 7 stars, the complexity will be overwhelming. However, they hope it's not that many. Kirara is currently guarding the area fiercely to ensure that absolutely no one can slip through her defense. As they try to find an opening to slip inside, Kirara suddenly marks a nearby car. It turns out the car's marking matches the one on Panda, causing Panda to be physically dragged and attached to the vehicle. Fushiguro is still free though, and he continues his dash toward the location of the 5th star. Megumi calls out to Panda while he focuses on his goal. He notices that the same repelling and attracting force that affected the divine dog is now happening to him and Panda. No matter how much they try to pull away, they keep getting pulled back, and Megumi is finally starting to fully grasp the mechanics of this technique. Megumi realizes that Kirara doesn't actually have to touch a person to place a star on them. Since she never touched him or the rabbits, it means her technique is designed to mark the person's cursed energy directly. This is what makes her ability so tricky to defend against since contact isn't necessary. The real question is how she marked the car, since cars don't have cursed energy. Megumi realizes she must have infused the car with her own energy first. As he scouts the area, he finally spots the 5th star and realizes that Kura is using her own energy signatures to set up these spatial markers to block them. Megumi realizes that if he can just touch that 5th star, he'll be able to bypass the repulsion and reach the door. It's the specific logic of the technique. However, just as he's about to make his move and reach for the star, Kirara suddenly appears to cut him off and prevent him from completing his plan. Kirara admits she never expected Megumi to decipher her technique with such precision, but she refuses to let him win. However, she makes a mistake by ignoring Panda. Panda uses one of the remaining rabbits and throws it, creating a disruption that finally causes the entire constellation technique to break apart. The constellation might look like a flat map, but it actually has incredible spatial depth. Kirara is absolutely furious that her complex defense was dismantled. She yells at them, asking if they really think they can just ignore her and her power by throwing simple objects around like it's nothing. Megumi had been waiting for the exact right moment to strike. Within 10 seconds of the technique failing, he has the divine dog pounce on Kirara. His patience finally pays off, as everything was timed perfectly to cross the invisible line and force Kirara into a corner where she can no longer resist. Megumi finally manages to restrain Kirara. Kirara mentions that if the divine dog hadn't been pulled in, Megumi might never have figured out the secret. He finally explains the core rule. The technique causes objects or people with the highest levels of cursed energy to be magnetically attracted to one another according to the stars. Megumi had noticed this energy attraction earlier. Kirara is genuinely impressed, asking if Megumi is really just a first-year student because his tactical knowledge is way beyond his age. Megumi, however, drops the attitude and literally begs Kirara to just listen to what they have to say. And right at that moment, Yuji comes flying through the air as Hikari makes his grand entrance. Hikari immediately starts delivering brutal hits. He tells Yuji he'll only listen after he sees how much of a beating Yuji can take, leaving Yuji with no choice but to absorb the blows. This isn't a measured fight like the ones in Shibuya. Hikari is throwing punches intended to break bones and faces. Even Kirara feels bad watching it and asks Hikari to listen. Yuji tries to explain that his seniors told him Hikari is the strongest person around, and that they desperately need his power. Hikari laughs and asks if Yuji is really ready to put his life on the line just for a favor. He questions if Yuji is truly prepared for the risk and mocks Principal Yaga, wondering out loud why such an old man would bother training someone who seems like a total loser in his eyes. Yuji responds with an intense resolve, saying he's just a cog in the machine built to destroy cursed energy. This answer makes Hikari even more furious, and he delivers a massive punch that sends Yuji flying through the air. Megumi screams in panic as he watches Yuji get knocked back a huge distance. Hikari assumes the fight is over and starts to walk away, but he is stunned when Yuji suddenly appears right behind him, standing firm. Hikari can't believe Yuji is still alive and conscious after taking so many direct, heavy punches that should have put anyone else down for good. Yuji reiterates that he is a cog whose only purpose is to exercise curses, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that. He even tells Hikari he's ready to play along with any of his games. Seeing this raw passion and dedication, Hikari finally starts to see Yuji's true worth and determination. Hikari realizes how passionate Yuji is and finally agrees to help them out. Even though he hates the Jujutsu High establishment, he can't turn his back on someone showing that much heart. As they talk, they find out that a brand new rule, Rule Number 9, has just been added to the ongoing game. Rule 9 allows players to see the names, points, and current colony locations of all other participants in the game. This significant rule change was initiated by a powerful person named Hajime Kashimo. Kashimo is currently in a state of deep depression because of how things are playing out. Kashimo complains that modern sorcerers are incredibly weak compared to the warriors of 400 years ago. He is searching for Sukuna and feeling frustrated by the lack of a challenge. Having already amassed 200 points, he uses them to add the rule that reveals everyone's information and location across the colonies. Kashimo, who is an ancient sorcerer reincarnated into the present, is the one who opened up all player information. The episode ends on this chilling note, but he isn't the only threat out there. There's also another mysterious individual lawyer who has entered the culling game and is making waves. This lawyer seems to have some sort of mysterious link to Sukuna as well. We'll have to wait for the next chapter to uncover exactly who he is and what his true intentions are. It's a massive cliffhanger that sets the stage for even more chaos as the story continues to unfold in the next installment. Moving into episode 7, Kenjaku's massive barrier has officially solidified. But surprisingly, he isn't actually looking to wipe everyone out immediately. By utilizing his curse techniques through the barrier, Kenjaku is able to enter that strange, liminal space that exists right between the dreams and the reality of every single person caught inside the barrier, so he can have a little chat with them. Kenjaku informs the residents that he is the one responsible for creating this barrier, and unfortunately, the places where they live have been forced to become the brutal battlegrounds for the culling game. Because Kenjaku put an immense amount of effort into constructing this barrier, the specific rules he has established are actually quite limited and he is unable to simply create completely nonsensical or impossible laws on a whim. However, there is one thing Kenjaku can do for the innocent people who are accidentally dragged into this mess. Anyone currently inside the barrier is permitted to leave exactly once. They are given the ultimate choice to either stay behind and risk death or step outside and keep on living. If they decide they want to leave, Kenjaku will personally escort them out once they regain consciousness. The reason Kenjaku has to move them is that, on the outside, the cursed spirits have already begun their grim work. While he is leading a young boy out, Kenjaku suddenly thanks the kid for being a friend to his son. Hearing that mention, I'm sure you guys already have a pretty good idea of exactly who he's referring to, right? Suddenly, the sound of someone calling out to Sasaki wakes the young man up. By this point, he has already been moved outside of the barrier. There are a ton of people gathered around, all of whom were taken out by Kenjaku just as they had requested. Every single person there confirms the same story. They were brought to that location by a man with long hair wearing traditional monk's robes. Sasaki asks his friend if the monk mentioned anything about his son to him as well. As it turns out, Kenjaku only shared that detail with Sasaki. Immediately, the image of Itadori Yuji pops into his head. Once all the misunderstandings are finally cleared up, the entire group sits down to have a serious talk. Hakari's jaw absolutely drops when he learns that Gojo Satoru has actually been sealed away. To make matters worse, Panda informs them that the principal has passed away, which causes a thick, gloomy atmosphere to hang over everyone. Yuji starts blaming himself, thinking the man died because of the catastrophe Sukuna caused during his rampage. However, Panda pulls him aside to tell him the truth. The principal died in combat against Principal Gakuganji, acting under orders from the higher-ups. Hakari clutches his head in total shock, realizing that almost every teacher who used to look after him is now in serious trouble or gone. Because of this, Hakari decides he's going to help Yuji's group deal with the culling game. But look here, you guys, don't go getting the wrong idea. I'm not doing any of this for free. This is a strict business deal, you understand. If I step in and help you out now, once everything is finally settled, you're going to have to return the favor and help me out with my own objectives. Alright, it turns out Hakari wants their help with overhauling the current Jujutsu regulations. Megumi decides to leverage his new status as the head of the Zenin clan, informing Hakari of his position and promising that he'll make the legal changes happen, no matter how difficult it proves to be. Hakari is hit with one surprise after another, but he realizes that with the backing of one of the big free families, those amendments are actually quite achievable. Even though he's still a little worried about the Zenin family trying to take over his underground arena, he figures it's best to stay on good terms with the young clan leader for now. Come here, buddy. I love you. But the poor guy has no idea that the Zenin clan has been decimated, and only Maki and Megumi are left. If he finds that out, he's going to be even more traumatized. Suddenly, a Kogani manager Shikigami appears, shouting at the top of its lungs. It announces some sensational news. Someone has already added a brand new rule to the game, which means that all the private information of other players will now be fully exposed, including their names, their current point totals, and any rules they have added to the current barrier. Man, whoever came up with that rule is really playing for keeps. However, Megumi is genuinely confused about why Yuji is already listed as a registered participant. In reality, you only become a player if you have either received the technique or accepted a cursed object directly from Kenjaku. For anyone else, regardless of their strength, They only officially become a player once they physically step inside a barrier. Yuji immediately recalls Kenjaku mentioning that he had established binding vows with countless sorcerers dating back over 1,000 years. This makes Yuji consider the possibility that Kenjaku must have made some kind of pact with Sukuna in the distant past. As a result, Yuji has indirectly become a participant through Sukuna's involvement. Even though Megumi still has plenty of questions, time is of the essence, so he as Yuji take advantage of Rule 9 to summon Kogani and demand specific information regarding the players who are currently participating in the culling game. Instantly, they receive a full breakdown of all the players and the identity of the person who just added that new rule. Megumi wastes no time and tells Kogani to filter the list for any guys who have more than 100 points. Kogani smartly replies that it's only synchronized with Yuji, not with Megumi. Megumi gets a bit irritated and looks ready to swing at the thing, but Yuji steps in to calm him down, telling Kogani to just shut its mouth and get on with the task. So, the little guy pulls up the records of everyone with over 100 points for the boys to check out. As Megumi looks over the names, he notices several sorcerers who have been reincarnated through contracts with Kenjaku, and you can be sure every single one of them has their own hidden motives. However, in order to get enough points to add the rules needed to save Tsumiki, Megumi's group would normally be forced to take out a significant number of people. That's why Megumi comes up with a better plan. They'll hunt down the guys who already have over 100 points, beat them into submission, and force them to use those points to create the new rules for the group. That would work perfectly. Looking through the list Kogani provided, they get lucky and find a guy named Higuruma Hiromi, who has 102 points and hasn't added any rules yet. Now they have a solid strategy. Megumi starts laying out the plan for everyone by focusing on how to exploit Rule 8. This rule dictates that players must change their point totals at least once every 19 days, or they'll have their curse techniques stripped away, which is basically a death sentence. But if they can introduce a new rule that allows players to transfer points to each other, Rule 8 becomes completely irrelevant since points can just be rotated around. Still, the most ideal option in Megumi's mind would be adding a rule that allows a player to spend points to officially exit the game forever. Hikari, however, is skeptical, thinking that such a change might violate the game's core logic and disrupt its overall maintenance. Megumi is well aware of that, but he figures that if they add a condition requiring the player to find a substitute to take their place before they can leave, the rule will likely be approved. Even with all this, their absolute #1 priority is still finding the angel to rescue their teacher Gojo because that's their only real path to a guaranteed victory. The entire group settles on targeting Higuruma Hamai and Kashimo Hajime as their primary prey. Following that, Yuji tries to look up any information he can find on the angel, but there's absolutely nothing available. Surprisingly though, he discovers a player named Taninaka who has an insane total of 500 points. Panda suggests that Angel might not actually be the person's real name. After analyzing the layout and splitting the team, Hikari chooses to head to the second barrier to track down Hajime, while Panda and the duo of Yuji and Megumi take on the first Tokyo barrier to search for the angel. Kirara, meanwhile, will stay outside the barrier and wait for them to return. The reality is that Hikari wants someone stationed on the outside so they can maintain a line of communication with Maki or Yuta if needed. During this time, Yuji suggests that it might be better if he and Megumi split up, mostly because Yuji is worried that Sukuna is brewing some kind of dark scheme regarding Megumi, but Megumi absolutely refuses to go along with that. Honestly, Yuji is being quite thoughtful and protective here. It's a nice gesture. By the next day, everyone has officially accepted the binding agreement with the Kogani manager to become active players. Waiting for them on the inside is a wide variety of threats, including ancient sorcerers who have been reincarnated from over 1,000 years ago. Yuji is pretty confused by it all. So, Megumi gives him a brief rundown on the last few centuries of Jujutsu history, but honestly, it doesn't matter much. Whoever they run into is getting hit with a black flash anyway, so the history lesson is just background noise. As the two of them enter the barrier, they are immediately warped to one of 9 random locations within the zone. This little teleportation trick was never mentioned in the official rules, but that's just the reality inside the barrier. At every single drop point, there are enemies already lying in wait to ambush newcomers. Yuji is instantly attacked by an opponent using a rocket-like headbutt move. However, his insane physical toughness is so high that she quickly starts to realize that things are getting difficult. Yuji just casually tosses her aside with one hand, and she goes spinning away instantly. Her partner immediately charges in to hold Yuji accountable for his actions. Meanwhile, Megumi is having his own problems with a girl sitting in the middle of the road, crying and threatening to tell her mom because she's scared of his dogs, which is giving Megumi a massive headache. On the other hand, there's a blonde guy who actually recognizes Itadori the moment he enters the barrier. After Yuji finishes dealing with that girl, a guy with propeller shows up to challenge him. This Haba fellow keeps using his propeller to stay close and pressure Yuji. However, Yuji's constant movement and incredible athleticism are making Haba very frustrated, making him wish he had even more gadgets at his disposal. Yuji uses his speed to slip past the rotating blades and attack from behind, but Haba quickly shifts the air and counterattacks, pushing Yuji back. The two of them end up in a fierce aerial struggle. After that, Yuji delivers a solid kick to Haba's face and ducks into a nearby building to neutralize the flight advantage of that head propeller. But Haba apparently has an enlarging light because he makes his fan massive and slices right through the building. However, he leaves a huge opening by charging in head first. What a massive blunder. Yuji is ready to capitalizing on it. He lands a punch as explosive as a rocket. A strike so powerful it completely shatters the guy's fan. Yuji decides to give him a couple of hits to the family jewels to take back for Hikari. Even with his incredible strength, even Yuji's own hand is feeling the impact after that punch. Moving back to Megumi, he's already knocked that crying girl out. He tells her to stop the nonsense and tell him everything she knows about Haruma Hiromi. She tries to be stubborn, but Megumi is even tougher, eventually forcing her to spill what she knows. However, in exchange, she demands that Megumi do something for her, like acting as her personal knight or something equally ridiculous. Megumi agrees immediately just to save time, but he makes it clear that this only applies if she's telling the truth. If not, he has no problem taking her out. Megumi is far more cold-blooded than Yuji. He's perfectly willing to earn 100 points himself by turning his opponents into gold rather than hesitating the way Yuji might. Meanwhile, Nobita is completely passed out after Yuji's little gift. While Yuji is trying to find out more about Higuruma, another guy shows up and recognizes him. Even though Yuji doesn't have a clue who this person is, as soon as he hears the guy call him the Tiger of Nishinaka, Yuji assumes they must be from the same neck of the woods. Without missing a beat, the guy starts leading Yuji toward Higuruma as if it's the most natural thing in the world. The guy introduces himself as Amai and admits he's just a low-level lackey for those guys. At the same time, that girl is leading Megumi on his own hunt. Things are starting to feel a bit suspicious, so Megumi asks her where she's actually taking him. She just tells him to keep quiet and keep following her. After a fair bit of back and forth, both of their guides finally provide an answer about Higuruma's whereabouts, but the locations they give are completely different from each other. It's pretty obvious at this point that both of these people are just trying to pull a fast one on them.